Okay, we're going to get started. Welcome back. Hope you enjoyed your concurrent sessions. It's just so amazing, all of the resources and expertise that is out there. And, talk about diversity and equity. This is all about involving everybody. And we've seen that from St. Paul, St. Vincent de St. Paul, and all the work they're doing, working with people that speak 13 different languages, to working with CRDC and Resonate about working with local communities, working locally, and then so many of our companies. And our second panel this morning talking about food scraps and how the big impact that that's having, but the positive impact that we can have. So now I'm going to take it to a whole other level. And we have three incredible companies that are working not only nationally, but globally, working through supply chains and just changing the way that we do business. So I will start off, if we can, next slide. Great. So I've already introduced myself, but just know that I'm here to help USGBC, True, and Zero Waste USA. We're here to help and support all of you. So please reach out. So our first speaker today is going to be Kendall. We can advance. Kendall Vanderhoof. She is actually a little new to the Niagara bottling team, but has really just stepped into her role as a sustainability analysis. We've been working with Niagara bottling since we first started in 2013, 2014. And they've really been a leader in not only getting their facilities here in the US, but in Mexico. And they've recently engaged in the portfolio program. So we're so excited to have Kendall and Niagara Bottling. Next up, we have two amazing ladies from JLL. First of all, Paulina Riviera, who's the Sustainable Operations Leader. And then her champion, which is Ruth Corona. And what impressed me most about Ruth and Paulina and their team is they're a group of women in Mexico, and they'll probably talk about this more in their presentation, but their goal, first of all, was to create a circular economy in Mexico City, and then in Mexico, and then the world. And this is what we're looking for, that these leaders that are willing to break down barriers. So next slide, here is Ruth's overview. And so Ruth is the Energy and Sustainable Services Director for JLL Mexico. And we do want to applaud. We work with JLL all over the world. And, they're the property managers for many of the buildings that you occupy. And they have such an opportunity to a huge positive environmental impact. And last but not least is Eve with Cisco Systems. Eve Richard, we just started working together. Eve is the environmental lead for the supply chain sustainability at Cisco. So even though Eve and I just started working together, we have been working with the Cisco supply chain for several years, and I just so appreciate their leadership. They contacted us, and they not only wanted to help their own facilities, and Eve will talk about this more, but they were willing to reach out to their entire supply chain and to help them get to zero waste. And of course, they were working on this before, but they offered out and have helped pay for educating their supply chain employees by putting them through the True Advisor, and then really assisting them and giving them a hands up to help them achieve True certification and certification. So what a wonderful group of women and young, vibrant, passionate women that are leading us forward. So it makes me very, very happy. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Kendall, and she's going to kick off the presentations. Kendall?
Thank you so much, Stephanie, for that introduction. Excited to be here and share our zero waste manufacturing policies with you all. We can go next slide, please. So today, just to give you a little background, Niagara Bottling is a water bottling and beverage manufacturer in the US and in Mexico. And today I'll kind of be talking about our mission and our foundation for True Zero Waste, things that we've done with packaging, our True Zero Waste portfolio, as Stephanie alluded to, how we recycle many of our special materials and manage those hard to recycle materials, and then just some other things that we've done. Next slide, please. So what has really helped our zero waste mission is having a really good sustainability mission statement that specifically calls out responsible resource usage and waste reduction, which is extremely important as we're making plastic water bottles. And so trying to use our resources as responsibly as possible and reduce waste, although I guess we're not trying to say waste anymore, but trying to more responsibly manage our materials. And we can go next slide, please. And this is just a slide that quickly overviews our focus on sustainability, which is centered around trying to increase our efficiencies and reduce waste as much as possible, not only in materials, but also in water, in energy, and then also in gasoline by reducing road miles as much as possible. We can go next slide, please. And so one thing that we've started with is ensuring that our bottle is 100% recyclable. And we've lightweighted our bottles so that we can now say that we are the strongest lightweight half-liter bottle that is ever produced. And we use 20% less plastic compared to other leading brands. And so if you go to the next slide, you can see over time since 2006, we've reduced our bottle weight by over 50% in the last 15 years. And we have done life cycle analyses on our bottle to show the carbon, water, and material reductions over the years. Unfortunately, I did not include that in this presentation, but I can link our life cycle analysis that also compares our bottles to cartons, glass bottles, and things like that in the chat after the call or after the conference. If you go next slide, we've also not only focused on reducing the materials used in our bottles, but also our packaging. And so we've reduced the plastic shrink film that we're using on all of our 24 and 40 pack cases, and reduced the amount of stretch film by analyzing exactly how much stretch film we need to make sure that the pallet of water does not fall over. We've also, it's not mentioned here, but completely gotten rid of, or at almost all of our plants, there's a few older ones that we still are working on doing this, but reducing or getting rid of the tier sheets in between the layers on that pallet. So you can see there's no cardboard in between those layers, which has reduced our material usage exponentially. If you go to the next slide, we were also the first water bottle manufacturer in the US to do the nested packs, which has allowed us to use less stretch wrap and get rid of those tier sheets, as I mentioned before. And all of these initiatives were being done prior to True Zero Waste kind of becoming a thing, or and so that has really allowed us to show our executives that reducing material usage and responsibly managing all of our materials is a good business decision. And so if you go to the next slide, that has allowed us to begin to certify our sites with True. And so today we have 5 plants certified, 1 in California, 1 in Texas, and 1 in Connecticut in the US. And then both of our plants in Mexico have been certified with True Zero Waste. And we achieve this True Zero Waste certification. I'll go into this all in more detail through reusing pallets, lightweighting our materials, eliminating those cardboard trays or sheets when possible, recycling all of our waste streams, and then also recycling hard to recycle items. Next slide. And as Stephanie mentioned before, we have registered all of our existing sites with the True program. And so this just gives a timeline of our True Zero Waste certifications. So in December 2017, we certified our first site with True. And this was in Ontario, California, which is just outside of LA County. And we were the first bottled water company in the US to achieve gold zero waste certification. In April 2020, we certified 2 additional sites in Connecticut and Texas. In December 2021, about last year, we recertified our California site to achieve platinum certification. And in March and November of this year, both of our Mexico sites achieved gold certification. And then earlier this fall, we did register 35 additional plants so that those we plan to be completely certified in the next year and a half. So we have a goal to achieve gold level certification at all of our sites. We plan to certify 21 sites by the end of next year, and then the other 14 by the end of the year following, and then plan to continue certifying sites once they've been open and producing for at least a year, just for that benchmarking period, and then we plan to certify the additional sites as well. And if you go to the next slide, you can see our progress in how we've encouraged participation in True and excitement around True. And so really certifying the initial sites allowed other sites to kind of see that certification and want it. And that site interest led into the executives actually initiating doing the portfolio. And this has really helped doing a top-down approach when it's initiated by the executives. Everyone else is really gung-ho about certifying all of our sites. And so each site has identified 1 to 2 employees that are going to oversee implementation, and we call them our True champions. And they work directly with myself and my team to submit bi-weekly checkpoints with information about True, and we're there to answer any of their questions and help them get that certification. But those well-defined checkpoints and goals have really helped or have really allowed us to do the certification as quickly as possible. And this has allowed all of our sites and regions to kind of engage in this friendly competition. We let all the sites know how far along in the process they are. We have regional VPs wanting their region to be certified first, or have the most platinum certifications, or just have the most True credits. And this has really helped put zero waste at the center of our company mission. Something that isn't in here, but recently we even had a lunch and learn with all of our company on National Recycling Day, and we had a brand new site that isn't in production yet reach out to us and challenge the sustainability team to see if we can completely reduce a trash service at their site. So ensure that every single material is recycled and managed properly. Right now, all of our sites average at about a 95% material recovery rate, but we want to increase that, or they want to increase that to 100%, which is awesome. And that definitely would not have happened 5 years ago. It might have not even happened 2 years ago. So we've definitely changed the company idea on True Zero Waste. So if you go to the next slide, I'll go into things that we've done to achieve True Zero Waste. So in accordance with California law, all of our sites in California are recycling organic waste, and we've ensured that the organic waste is being disposed of properly by our waste haulers. but we are looking to possibly expand this outside of California as well. If you go to the next slide. We also do quality inspections to reduce waste on site. And so we inspect our bottles and caps before we fill the bottles and cap them so that a damaged bottle is not filled with water and a cap is added to it so that we're reducing waste as much as possible. At all of our new sites, we also are regrinding all of our unfilled bottles and caps so that none of the waste is being trucked offsite to be recycled. We're regrinding it and immediately putting it into a new bottle on site so that there's no contamination, and we're ensuring that we are managing our materials as well as possible. We have 7 different inspection locations on our manufacturing lines. So in the left picture, you can see the blown bottle being inspected, the middle one, our caps being inspected, and then after the bottles and caps, or after the bottles are filled and they're capped, they're inspected again. And so that the label isn't put on unless the bottle is, it's shown that it's under quality or meets our quality requirements. And if you go to the next slide. We also have at our Ontario, California site, we have a dedicated on-site pallet refurbishment space. And so all of the pallets that we get in, we are rebuilding them if they're not to quality or if they won't be able to hold, ensuring that we aren't throwing away any pallets that we can reuse or break apart to use in other pallets. This allows us to increase pallet quantity or quality and lengthens lifespan, and just kind of process those pallets to reduce wood waste as much as possible. Go to the next slide. We're also recycling all of our hard to recycle materials, such as our RO membranes that we use to purify the water. Even though there's a certain point when we can't use our RO membranes anymore, there's other applications that those can be used, and so they are reused or recycled. At most of our sites, we also are recycling our hair nets, beard nets, and earplugs, and recycling any universal waste such as batteries, both AA, AAA, but then also our larger laser-guided vehicle batteries, all of our light bulbs, ink cartridges, and other electronics. Next slide. And just to kind of go over this really quickly, we also are ensuring that any resin pellets are not entering the environment by or through Operation Clean Sweep, so that our resin onloading, all of those pellets go into the resin silos and are not ending up in the sewer system or the environment. And if you go to the next slide, this also just shows our LEED certification at our headquarters building, kind of showing that our sustainability practices are not only at our manufacturing buildings, but also HQ. And then next slide, I just want to say thank you all for attending this conference. It's really great to kind of connect with all of you, and my contact information is there if you want to contact me after. But thank you so much.
Great. And next up will be Ruth and Paulina from JLL. Next slide.
Thank you, Stephanie. It's a pleasure to be here with you, sharing all what's happening in Mexico. So first of all, I would like to introduce JLL. I'm not going to spend so much time on this, but in the next slide, you can see that we are, the next one, please. We are a real estate company that basically works with our clients in the whole life cycle of an asset. The next one, please. Thank you. We have a global presence, and we work in all kinds of real estate services that you can imagine. Tenant representation, project management, property, facilities. And these are some of our awards. So considering that we are involved in the real estate, we have this responsibility to impact also positively with all our clients. And based on that, we decided to implement our sustainability way. We were actually working in these services and these things with our clients, but if you can help me with the next one. But we finally established our science-based targets, and we are now committed to achieve this net zero for 2040. And that includes not only our operations, but the operations that we manage for all our clients in the world. These are also some of our awards and some of our allies in sustainability. And taking this in consideration, and also be aware that most of our emissions came from the emissions from our clients, we decided to formalize the Sustainability Services Business Unit in a global level. And right now we are providing these services to our clients. We are working in the next slide. You can see that we are working with these 3 pillars. Basically, we are trying to help our clients to establish this strategy, this sustainability strategy. Some of them have them, and some others doesn't have a sustainability strategy. But first of all, we help them to define this. Once that they have this strategy, we work with them in order to implement these sustainability programs, and we are their strategical partners and work with them in order to implement and operate all these programs. And that includes our circular economy and waste management programs. And finally, we support them with all the consultancy and all the support in order to make smart decisions to invest in sustainability infrastructure in all their assets. So basically is what we are doing in sustainability. And in the next one, please. Paulina now is gonna give you a general overview about what is happening here in Mexico regarding waste. So Paulina, please go ahead.
Thank you, Ruth, and thank you, Steph. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm gonna give you a quick overview of waste generation. So could you please next slide? Thanks. Here are the numbers of generation by region. So as you can see, in North and Latin America, we have the 4th and 5th place of waste generation, generating around 200 million tons per year, and it's projected to grow 70% to 2050. Next slide, please. And talking about Latin America, Mexico is like the main country that contributes to this number. We are generating around 42 million of tons, and 14% of this waste is being recycled, and mainly in plastics. This is because most of the waste we're generating or we're recycling, it comes from industries. They are post-industrial waste. Next slide, please. And this is like bad news. We only recycle 4.5% in Latin America comparing to other countries in the world. So it's bad news, and it's a hard, we are having a hard way now. Next slide, please. So it depends on the growth of the cities. In Mexico, we are contributing with a big number, and as you can see, we still have a lot of work to do. This is becoming more relevant issue to attend, and it depends on the political, cultural, and economic activities. The next slide, please. And I bring you some legislations here in Mexico. The first one is called LEGEPA, and in Spanish is Ley General del Equilibrio Ecológico y la Protección Ambiental, and it talks about all the environmental protection. The second one is called in Spanish LEGEPIGIR, it's like the common name, and the whole name is Ley General para la Prevención General de los Residuos, and this one talk about waste management And we are also regulated by norms and regulation, and it depends on states and the municipality. And we have these three different categories talking about waste. It's solid urban waste, special treatment waste, and hazardous waste. This third kind of waste that is hazardous, we have three different generators. It depends on the volume of the generators, but they are called like big generator, deal generator, and like a tiny generator. The next slide, please. It was just to give you like the whole context of waste here in Mexico, and this is our way of working. The next slide, please. I would like to share to you like the problems we've been experimenting at the time we offered these programs to our clients. So it's been a hard way because waste services are cheap, and not all of them can are regulated. So the problem here is that in Mexico they are used to have this waste management, cheap waste management, because they usually contract just one kind of alternative to get waste to be sent to landfill. So what we offer, or what we found, is that they have like this wrong idea that the waste, if you put just people separating waste, you will get off this problem. And it's not having people separating waste in the with our clients. It's more like that. That's the reason we found this different model, and we mixed the sustainability three pillars that are environmental, social, and economic with a circular economy model. So what we are doing actually, with environmental, we look for alternatives of supply chain to change the materials they are buying, and to find more alternatives for materials that are more like eco-friendly. And we also look for alternatives to get this waste diverse to landfill. And for social, we also give this option to our clients for all the money they get for selling the recycled materials, to donate them to these green programs we work with. And we also give this social impact at the time we implement our waste management programs, because we also give training to the generators, and the generators are the employees that work in these companies. So at the time we start training the employees how they generate waste, how to generate it instead of generating waste, generate materials that can be recycled or reused or incorporated to this value chain. We can obtain more. We can change minds, so they can introduce this knowledge to the daily activities. And talking about this economic pillar, we also, as I just mentioned, we sell the recyclables, and we find different alternatives for non-recyclable materials like hazardous, or the ones that are called special materials that come from remodeling or for construction. And that's basically what we do. As you can see, we mix this circular economy with these three pillars of sustainability. The next slide, please. And we wanted to share this this new model that is called Resilient City, because we think that the way the cities are growing, is not like the right way, or not probably the way they want to grow. So resilient city are cities that take action of any obstacles, and they are based on analysis, evaluation, plan, strategy, and execution. So that's the main activities we use for waste reduction and for our waste management plans. So this is the same idea we use for our waste management. The next slide, please. And as I already told you, this is like step by step how we implement these waste management plans. And first of all, we make a diagnostic. We usually make a waste stream audit to quantify and qualify the waste, the waste they are generating. And we analyze what kind of waste can be reincorporated to the value chain. And we usually look for suppliers to give this waste the right final disposal. And we find this strategy, we set targets, we measure the waste we are getting, we get the weight of the waste inside, and we usually get this data from the suppliers, and we determine our targets year by year. And we make this analysis of our plan. We usually have these steps. We are following these steps by analyzing every 2 or 3 months. How are we doing this? And this 4th point, that it's communication and marketing, I think it's like the main point, because as I already told you, they usually think that if you put one person to pick the waste and start separating the waste, they are gonna contribute with this. But this is like a mind change. So we work a lot with employees, we work a lot with outsourcing that work there, and we give them the training to have this knowledge and to start separating at the time they generate the materials. And we give also an option to our clients to certify and contribute to social programs, as I already told you. And we offer also to participate in the true certification. The next slide, please. And now we want to share some case study. The next one, please.
Okay, basically what we do with most of our clients is to put in place a project leader that manage the whole project and work with suppliers and also with stakeholders and employees and everybody who is involved in this project. So once that we have this leader, we work together with the central team, and we have implemented this program with different kind of clients. One of these is a restaurant chain. It's one of the biggest here in Mexico. And basically, they were generating a lot of used cooking oil from the operations on all these restaurants. So we implemented this collection project in order to, well, collect it and then work with one of the biggest companies in that moment here in Mexico. It was an entrepreneur, but fortunately, we were really, really good with him. And he produced this biodiesel, and then this biodiesel was used for tourist transportation. So at the end of this project, the client could collect it and also get incomes from about $1.2 million of incomes. So we faced different challenges. For example, we had to work with each restaurant because they had different brands. So each one had a different process to collect this oil. So we need to work together with them and also with our supplier because it was a small company. They didn't have process. They didn't generate information. So basically, we had to train him and also to help him to generate the documentation and all the information that we needed, also to provide the scorecards and see how was the project. So this was focused on oil, but was one of our case studies. The next one was the first, one of the first projects that we implemented here in Mexico. Is with one of the biggest financial service company. We have been the facility managers of this client during the last 20 years. So it was really helpful to work with them because as a facility manager, we have the opportunity to work with the suppliers, of course, but also with maintenance and cleaning people. So all the policies and all the processes were easier to implement it in this with this client. So basically, at the end of the project, we could achieve the first LEED Platinum Operation and Maintenance certification, not just in Mexico, but in Latin America. We work with all the organic waste, and with this, we could generate compost that was used also in the green areas of the client. Also, they weren't working with the hazardous materials, that it's a problem. So we help them to implement all the process and to track all the information and work with the right suppliers, because everybody wants to dispose waste here in Mexico, but sometimes they don't have the permissions to do this. We also work with different areas internally in the bank, because I think that it's a key point. For example, with the information area, we work in order to destruct the paper and to get a better size of destruction according to the size that they needed for their policy. And also we could generate savings for this paper destruction and incomes from the waste, the recyclable materials. So at the end, we could generate a committee in order to donate these incomes to different causes for the bank. So it was the first one and a good project for us here in Mexico. Then Pau.
Next slide, thank you. This is another case study. Our client is an insurance company. We're still working with him, and the challenge was to become a sustainable corporate and look for alternatives for waste reduction. And as I already told you, we start implementing our waste management program, and we obtained 44% of reduction in waste going to landfill, and recycled was increasing from 41 to 61%, and 13.21 tons of CO2 equivalent were avoided. Talking about this project, our main problem was to start tracking where the kind of material comes from, because most of the buildings, they belong to this investment portfolio and they rent their spaces. So we have these different kind of materials coming from the different floors, and we start to recognize the quality of the materials, and these materials, where to send them with our suppliers. And we start working with them, giving them some instructions to separate the waste and start getting them in great conditions to recycle it. And also we look for alternatives for materials that are considered waste, special treatment waste material, and we found that comes from remodeling and relocations, and we got 56% tons of materials recycled. And we're actually working with them, and we for the commitment to achieve LEED and EBOOM certification to 2023.
And we are about to, you have the presentation, and at the end of the slides, also you can have our contacts. So thank you very much for your time and the opportunity to be here with you, sharing this information.
Great, thanks so much, Ruth and Paulina. Alex, if you want to move their slides forward, there's their contact information. And thank you so much for accommodating us English speaking only. It's amazing work that you're doing. So next up, we have Eve from Cisco.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. It's great to see such a diverse panel and big audience. So as they mentioned in my introduction, I'm Eve Richer. I work at Cisco, leading the environmental strategy for our supply chain sustainability team. And I've actually been at Cisco for about 5 years. So when I first joined Cisco, there were pockets of circular economy activity happening in silos of the company, right? So there was a long-standing take back and recycling program for Cisco equipment. There was a remanufactured business. There's work going on in our own operations to manage waste. But at the time, 5 years ago, there wasn't really one holistic circular economy strategy. And so it just happened around the time that I joined, there was a decision to say, okay, let's bring all of these pieces together and formulate an overall enterprise-wide circular economy strategy. So that's a little bit of what I'm going to talk about today, of how we've brought all the pieces together, what that strategy looks like, and then I'll give some examples of how we're implementing circular economy principles, from how we design products to how we manage our operations and our supply chain to the life cycle of those products in the world, and what we do to make sure that we're really minimizing waste and trying to really think about it as a resource from all aspects. So we can go to the next slide, please. And I'll just kind of, for those that aren't super familiar with Cisco, just to give a high level overview, we're a large global company, over 85,000 employees in 100 countries. We have hundreds of offices globally, and then we also have, a pretty large outsourced supply chain where our products are manufactured. And Cisco essentially builds many of the products that are the infrastructure for the internet. So it goes across networking, security, collaboration, data center, cloud. So think about things like routers and switches, things that might really more exist in networking closets that you wouldn't see too much unless you work in IT. But it also includes things like desk phones that people may have in their offices, or telepresence video units, or even software like Cisco WebEx software. So it's a pretty diverse mix of things that we have across the portfolio. Go to the next slide, please. So I thought I would start by just giving a high-level overview of some of our public commitments related to sustainability and circular economy. And I'm actually going to start at the end of this slide, so kind of our big picture, where are we headed? We have a 2040 goal to achieve net zero across all scopes of emissions, so across scopes 1, 2, and 3. And this goal has been validated by the Science Based Targets Initiative against their new net zero standard. And so there's a 2040 goal, as well as a couple of interim goals that I'll speak to, that all kind of make up our net zero SBTI approved goal. So that includes the 2030 goal that we're working towards, to achieve a 30% absolute reduction in scope 3 emissions from purchased goods and services, from transportation and distribution, as well as the use of our products. So really, those are the biggest portions of our scope 3 emissions. We're tackling those for 30% reduction by 2030. And then we also have a 2025 goal to reduce our scope 1 and 2 emissions by 90%. So those are some of our emissions goals. And then we have a number of other 2025 goals that are either related to emissions and waste and circular economy. So we have a goal that 80% of our component manufacturing and logistics suppliers will set their own greenhouse gas targets, and a goal that 70% of our component manufacturing suppliers will achieve a zero waste diversion rate at one or more sites. And actually, Stephanie mentioned this earlier on when she was doing the introduction. So we've been partnered with True on supporting our suppliers to get those zero waste certifications, and I'll talk about that in a little more detail later. We've also committed that 100% of new Cisco products and packaging will incorporate circular design principles. So I'll explain a little bit more about what that looks like. And then we have some goals around the use of plastic and the materials in our packaging. So 50% of the plastic used in our products will be made of recycled content by 2025. We're working towards a 75% reduction in foam use in our packaging, and a 50% improvement in product packaging efficiency. And then we also have, in the upper corner on the slide, you can see we have a pledge to 100% product return. So how we're really helping to bring products back from customers when they're done using them and make sure that they go on to their next best life. And I have some slides about that towards the end that I'll speak to. But we can move over to the next slide now. Thanks. So we're continuing to make progress against these goals. We report on this every year, and in fact, we're about to come out with our new ESG reporting and our new purpose report in the next couple of weeks. So these numbers are a little bit outdated because we haven't publicized the latest, but just to give kind of a snapshot of things. So I mentioned that target where we're working with our suppliers to achieve a zero waste diversion rate. So in the last reporting year, 27% of our suppliers had achieved zero waste at least one site. We're expecting that to go up, and we'll be reporting that number soon in the next round of reporting. We have also decreased our foam use in Cisco product packaging by 21%. We had a 38% decrease in the use of virgin plastic. That was actually exceeding a previous goal that we had for 2020, so we retired that goal and replaced it with that new goal that I mentioned. And then when we get our products back from customers, so if a router, phone, et cetera, if it comes back to us through our take back program, 99.9% of what we get back either gets reused or recycled. So practically nothing ends up as waste. It's really all, it's all going to its next best use, whether that's remanufacturing or sending it on to recycling for those materials to then go back into the system. We also achieved a 60% reduction in paper shipped with our products. And then there's some other ones here, but I think for the sake of time, I'll move on to the next slide, and I'm happy to take questions on this later. So as I mentioned, we brought 5 years ago, or maybe, it was maybe 4 years ago when we actually put the strategy together, but we brought together all the elements of circular economy that are material for Cisco and framed it up around these 5 focus areas. So the first one is design. Everything really starts with design. How we're designing our products is going to have an impact on how they get used out in the world, how they get manufactured. And so we have a program to really design products and packaging with the principles of circularity in mind. So thinking about what are the materials that we're using, how do we make them modular so we can extend product life, how do we make them easier to repair. So there's a whole program around design. And then the next pillar is focused on operations. And this is looking at how can we reduce consumption and use renewable sources across our value chain. So it includes what we're doing in our own operations. So, you know, the offices that we have around the world, the labs and the data centers, how do we manage waste and the resources that used to power those, as well as our extended supply chain operations. So almost all of our manufacturing is outsourced to manufacturing partners and component suppliers. And so we also really focus on how to embed circularity into our supply chain. And then the next pillar is circular consumption. And this is focused on the life cycle management of our products. So how do we manage our equipment for multiple life cycles? So we're not just putting them out into the world and it's a traditional linear flow where a customer uses it, then they're done with it in a few years and it doesn't have a purpose anymore. We're really trying to promote different business models, like as a service models, different types of leasing models to make sure that our products can have multiple life cycles, as well as really trying to spread awareness that we have a take back program. We'll take back equipment, Cisco equipment from any customer anywhere in the world and ensure it goes on to its next best life. And then because we're a technology company, we have a unique position to play on this idea of circular solutions. And so there are teams working to innovate and really shape and pioneer what are the technology solutions and services that Cisco and our partners could put out in the world that would actually help customers advance their own circular economy goals and be more sustainable and manage their resources better. And then lastly, ecosystem leadership. So, there are many areas where I'm sure all of you working in the space of zero waste and circular economy know that there are many systems challenges, right? We can't just individually work as companies, organizations on our own. So in the ecosystem leadership pillar, we prioritize certain industry innovation groups, collaboration opportunities, public policy engagement opportunities to drive change at scale and address some of those larger systemic opportunities that are hard for one company to tackle on their own. So we can go on to the next one now. So as I mentioned, it all starts with design. So I thought I'd share a couple slides on design. This is kind of the overarching strategy. So it goes across materials selection, really trying to think about how do we use renewable materials, recycled materials. It includes standardization and modularization. So the more that we can use standard components across multiple products, the easier it is to repair. There's less implications with inventory going obsolete. So there's work on standardization as well as making products more modular. So, if a part of a product needs to be replaced or upgraded, you don't necessarily need to get rid of the whole thing and upgrade to a new one. You can maybe just, that modular part can be replaced. And so it's a little bit, it's less wasteful. It can help to extend the life of products. We have a whole program around sustainable packaging, looking at the materials that we're using in our packaging. Like I said, trying to eliminate foam, really trying to reduce use of plastic bags, thinking about the accessories that we're sending out with our products. Do customers really need these accessories? How do we really minimize waste on that front? And then, when you think about a circular economy, it needs to be powered by clean energy. We really need to think about the energy that's powering that economy. So we have work to drive energy efficiency in our devices and really figure out, how do we make sure energy is being used widely through both hardware design and software design. And then lastly, we have multiple principles around how do we design our products for disassembly, repair, and reuse. So thinking about, how do you make sure that standard common tools can be used to disassemble a product, and it can be quick and affordable to actually repair, so that we're not having to scrap something and just, if something breaks, have to replace it. So we can go to the next slide. I have some examples of like, what does this actually look like in action? So just a few specifics. One example is a no paint project. So we, this picture you see here, it's kind of small, but it's our Catalyst 9000 series. So switching products where we eliminated oil-based wet paint. And so I don't have both pictures here, but we used to paint these products and now we don't. They look very, very similar. These are often just sitting in networking closets, so we really don't need, from an aesthetic perspective, it looks very much the same. And by doing this paint elimination, we could avoid 1,200 metric tons of carbon emissions. And we are expecting to continue avoiding those emissions, per year moving forward as we continue to make this line without paint. And another benefit of this no paint change was that it eliminated 82 metric tons per year of hazardous volatile organic compounds. So that has benefits for recyclability. It also has benefits for the workers that are making the products not having to be exposed to those VOCs. Next example is a box patch. So again, it may be a little bit small to see, but when you think about boxes, our products going through the process of getting to the distribution sites, going out to customers, inherently some of them might get little tiny cosmetic things or blemishes, nothing that's really going to impact the ability of that packaging to protect the product, but it's just really a cosmetic issue. And so this box patch is essentially a sticker. It's an adhesive label that they can put onto the box at distributor sites to cover up any blemish. And basically it has some information on it just explaining, we're doing this because of sustainability reasons. There's a QR code to learn more. And it helps to minimize the corrugate material waste because we're not having to then unbox the whole thing, put brand new corrugate and cardboard. And it also avoids costs and delays and emissions due to having to potentially ship back and forth between different distribution centers to rebox. So benefit for the business, benefit for the customers, benefit for the planet. Next example, I'll talk a little bit about our UCSX servers. So this is kind of a nice showcase product where the team was really passionate about circular design, and from very early on in designing their next generation, they tried to think about all the circular design principles that they could incorporate. So these servers are engineered to be quickly assembled and disassembled using standard tools. There's not, like lots of different types of screws and specialized equipment that you need. You can assemble them and disassemble them pretty easily. They're also using recycled plastic parts, recycled foam packaging. There's no wet paint, similar to the other example that I gave. And they also reduced the powder coat compared to the prior generation. So that was a bit of a material reduction that had environmental benefits. And then lastly, I'll talk about a rugged industrial router. It's the IR1101 router. And this was designed to be future-proof. So the idea was for customers buying these for industrial applications, there's this transition that's going on, now and in the future towards 5G. And we didn't want to put a product out in the world that would then become obsolete once 5G comes around. So the idea is that you can, when you're ready to upgrade to 5G, you can switch out one small module. So it helps to extend the life of the product. And there was also some work done on energy. So the idle power usage from this generation was reduced by 45% compared to the previous generation of this product. We can go ahead to the next slide. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about our operations, both our direct operations and what we're doing in supply chain. So in our direct operations, there is a facilities team that leads a lot of this work, and also green teams that are around the world. So these are employees that are passionate about the topic that can voluntarily join one of 21 local chapters of green teams, and there's hundreds of members. And so there are events that they put on and learning events and different ways that the green teams get involved to really kind of lead the way at different sites. And even those that work in a hybrid or virtual can be involved in the green teams. And then there's been work to shift from disposable cups to reusables at the Cisco office site, so making those things like mugs available. There are composting programs at our major sites, and the teams, one of the sites that had actually been working with True Zero Waste towards certification. Some of that went on pause a little bit just because of the pandemic, because we all stopped going to the offices for quite a while, and the occupancy is still pretty low, but there's still a lot of passion and dedication to making sure we continue to drive these zero waste programs across our sites. And then also because we're a technology company and we design electronics, I wanted to mention we also have e-bins, which are just large bins that are placed near our labs and in our offices around the world to make sure that when teams have electronic equipment that's either used for testing or for product design, there's a place for them to put it to make sure that those electronics are responsibly managed and recycled. And then we also run a Recycle IT Day once a year, usually around Earth Day, and that's really employees can bring in any e-scrap. So if you've got old cell phones or electronics, it doesn't have to be Cisco, it can be anything. You can bring it in, and Cisco pays to have a big collection process so that material can be properly recycled. And then on our supply chains, I already mentioned our goal that we 70% of our component and manufacturing suppliers will achieve zero waste at one or more sites by FY25. And so we have been partnering with Choose Zero Waste to support and verify the completion of our supplier zero waste certification efforts, so helping them to get trained up and providing them the support that they need. And we also require our manufacturing partners to collect and report waste diversion data to Cisco so we can understand where the challenges are, where there may be opportunities for Cisco to collaborate with suppliers. If there's a challenging issue, for example, with packaging and policies that Cisco's setting, how do we start to kind of work across the value chain to address those? And so we leverage that data for that purpose. And then I've just got a couple slides next. We can go to the next one. And this gets more into, when our products go out into the world, how do we make sure that we have a circular economy lens to that? So I mentioned this early on, but we have a pledge that we made at Davos in 2018. So Cisco was one of many other companies that signed what's known as this Capital Equipment Pledge. And our CEO committed to these 4 bullets here. So one is that we committed to provide product return, pickup, and transport at no cost for any customer anywhere in the world. And we're continuing to improve those programs to make it easier for customers to use a mobile app or to go onto an easy web platform and send their equipment back. We've also been trying to establish alternative business models that promote product returns, so things like looking at trade-in, credit programs, leasing. There's transitions at Cisco going on right now towards as a service model, so really thinking how do we embed circular economy into that and make sure that if a product is being sold as a service, there's sort of a path for that product to come back and go back out into the world, because it's really more about what is the outcome that this equipment provides rather than just trying to upgrade equipment. We also offer comprehensive warranty, replacement, service, and repair for all of our products to help extend the product lifetime and minimize obsolescence. And then we repurpose products that we get back and the components and the commodities. And I'll talk about that a little bit on the last slide I had. Because some of what we get back, if it's able to be, you can jump to the next slide. Some of what we get back, if it's able to be remanufactured, we remanufacture it and we sell it through a business division and a Cisco Refresh. So Cisco Refresh products have been remanufactured, tested. They meet all of the specifications of like new equipment. It's just like new. The only difference is that it has been out in the world before and it's at a lower price point typically. So it's a great way for customers who want a more sustainable option and a more cost-effective option to continue to buy Cisco gear that has been part of the circular economy. And this has also actually been a really great program during the pandemic. I'm sure people have heard about all the different types of component and equipment shortages you're seeing across industries. And so it kind of demonstrates how you can have a more resilient value chain by having equipment that comes back. Some of this was actually, the supply was easier to get for customers with shorter lead times because it wasn't subject to the same component shortages that some other parts of the business were facing. So these products are eligible for the same warranty and repair services and everything else. So just another way that we're kind of thinking about circularity and the way that we sell our products out into the world. And I think that's my last slide. Actually, we have one more just for the last one. For folks that want to learn more, there's a link here to get to our ESG reporting hub. So there's a lot of information about the different programs here and the goals that I mentioned and our progress towards those goals. And with that, I think I will be passing it back over to Stephanie.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kendall, Paulina, Ruth, and Eve. Just packed full of information. And I think the key here is it's progress, not perfection. And what I love about the space that I'm working in now with companies that you have all showcased is you have a huge impact. And so your one small change changes your industry, it changes the markets, it changes how consumers are interacting with your products. So as always, consumers, we need, and activists, we need to continue to do our part, but we need to celebrate and support what these companies are doing. So thank you so much. And the other powerful thing, which was highlighted in all of them, is as residents and citizens, we're all confused by our waste management system. And I call it a waste management system because that's really what it is. It wasn't designed to be circular, closed loop, zero waste. And so what all of these companies are doing is they're retraining employees who are residents and citizens and consumers. So it's a really powerful impact that they're having. We're going to go into the next panel in just a couple of minutes. So for our speakers, you can continue to answer the questions that are in the chat. They will still be there if you want to scroll through and answer them. We will also collect them and make sure they get to the speakers. So just in closing, if you would all like to go through and just provide a closing comment and what you need from us, the community or consumers, how we can help support you. So Kendall, we'll start off with you. So just a closing comment and what are next steps either for Niagara or how we can work collectively together.
Thank you so much. I think your progress, not perfection mentioned is a great call out and a way to end. Plastic water bottles are being used, but we have, ensured that they are being recycled, or at least our bottles are being recycled. And thank you so much for that conversation about TerraCycle. Definitely something that we will look into more. If there's alternatives out there, we've only found one at a small scale, but we would love to be able to recycle that PPE because we are required to use it. Yeah, thank you.
Great. And Ruth and Paulina, you want to give some closing comments and how we can support you?
Thank you, Steph. Well, as we have been working with you, providing information and working together in order to promote all this information with our people locally, it's a key point in order to generate these synergies and collaborate, because we think that in the way that we can work together, not with the biggest companies, but with the small ones, and also with the post-consumer materials, not just with the post-industrial materials, we are going to generate different results. No? So thank you very much for the time, and hopefully we will continue working together. Thank you, Steph.
Of course, of course. And Eve, I'll let you wrap it up. I think you're on mute, Eve.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So just to wrap us up, I would just emphasize really having that holistic view when you think about waste, when you think about circular economy. I like that comment you just made, Stephanie. It's a waste management system, but we really need to move away from that and think about how do we sort of eliminate the concept of waste from our business models, from the way that we set up our economies, the way that we kind of set up organizations. And so for us at Cisco, it's been really about how do we embed it into the business and make it the standard part of how we do things. And we still have a long journey to go, but I would encourage everyone to kind of think about it from that lens and approach it from a systems thinking view.
Amazing. And thank you so much for sharing your time and your expertise. It's so appreciated.